Starsector is a game that is alive. Trade convoys, raiders, war fleets, pilgrims, patrols, mining fleets, constantly changing economy. That's what makes Starsector alive. All those fleets, all those elements which make the game alive are tiny fragments, tiny extensions of the limbs that make Starsector, the factions. Even without the mods, there are many factions: the Hegemony, Luddic Church, Luddic Path, Persean League, Syndron Dictat, Tri-Tachyon, Independents, and Pirates. Those are the main factions of the sector, but there are also minor factions. The corporations, the Altair Exotech, Bihali Astra Group, Erdani Utopia Terraforming Corporation, Exodyne Biotech, GAX Industries, Interstellar Dynamics, Co-Combine, MGA, Orion Shipyards, and there are policies like Asconian Policy, Maasuria, and Maxius Charter. Hello, I'm the Steel Merchant, and today I want to go through all the factions, minor and major, in basic details. Please excuse my dyslexia, which is going to make me make many mistakes, and enjoy my HD detours. We all know the major factions: the Hegemony, Tri-Tachyon, the League. Therefore, I will start with the minor factions that are less known. From those factions I will begin with those which are already destroyed, gone from this sector, or reduced to a form where they don't have any presence or force. Then I will go through factions which were strong and were destroyed, or their power was greatly diminished. So much so, they are completely different from what they were before. Then I will go through factions that are active or their status is unknown. I will also add my speculations to the more interesting factions. I think that as this video goes, you may throw all what I said away. The line, the structure that I spoke about, because I think I make a different structure later. But we will see. Erdani Utopia, Altair Exotech, Fabric Orbital, Interstellar Dynamics. Those factions were destroyed by the collapse or after it. Interstellar Dynamics is only mentioned in the timeline of Starsector. Nothing is known about them. That's why I begin with them, as their power pre-collapse is unknown. Their fall, I think, shows they weren't strong enough to survive. Fabric Orbital, an interesting corporation which created the Kite Shuttle, the Orbital Fusion Lamp, the Fluorine Spool, the Plasma Dynamo, and they are the designers of the Terminator drone's chassis and systems. Destroyed after the collapse, their corporation was much focused on economy, on trade. I think it is not the collapse that destroyed them, but the opportunity it gave. As the rival of Tri-Tachyon, I think the corporation capable of going toe to toe with a battle group of the domain and Luddic Church and Path fleets easily destroyed their old rival, seizing the moment. This, however, is speculation, like much that I will do later in the video. I think what I said here makes sense. Tri-Tachyon wouldn't lose the opportunity like this. Erdani Utopia was a terraforming corporation which survived some years after the collapse. The designer of stellar mirrors and stellar shades, creators of autonomous Mantelbore and the Soul Nanites. They used the Odyssey from Altair Exotech as headquarters in mobile survey expeditions. Defunct, after the collapse, stranded elements of the corporation terraformed the planet Quaras and did other terraforming operations, like Barat, Garnier Extraction Depot in Corvus system. Erdani built mass drivers to export volatiles to feed terraforming efforts on Asharu in the same system. In the process of terraforming, before the collapse, using ice from Barad for water and stellar shades negate the heat. Captain Starworks is Isra star system, built to serve the corporation needs. Gilead, Canaan successfully stabilized climate change and ecological processes after initial spore ship seeding. This planet became a full Terran world and was occupied later by the Luddic Church, forcing out the corporation of the planet. Idhika, Penelope's star, intended to be terraformed before the collapse threw the sector into chaos. Ogia, Penelope's star, was to be terraformed with its sibling Yama in the Naraka system, was terraformed and colonized to support Nachiketa fuel refinement. Quaras, Yama star system, terraformed or collapsed by the remnants of the corporation. Although the corporation survived initial fall of the gate system, slowly over the years it was beaten until it was destroyed. Their crown Gilead was taken by the newfound Luddic Church. During this time, Luddic Church was unbeatable for the corporation. They had the numbers and further and used them. This surely threw everything else into chaos even further. Remnants of the corporation took all to Quaras in Yima system, a system without any strong faction and close to hegemony, with which they were surely on good terms, as they terraformed Yama and Asharu. With two remnants left on the other ends of the core worlds, Erdani Utopia was crippled. In Cycle 47, Captain Starworks, one of the two remaining bases of the corporation, was taken by Warlord Leonis. This made Quaras only seat of Erdani Utopia. Corporation used everything they got to terraform Quaras. It is unknown how exactly the corporation fell, but it is possible they lasted all the way till the second AI war in Cycle 189. That, however, is my speculation. It is unknown if Hanapacha, destroyed by a planet killer, was terraformed by Erdani Utopia. Altair Exotech, competitive shipwrights, designed the cruiser school, which began to take over the war fleets of the domain before the collapse. They made ships like Pegasus, Champion, Griffon, Heron, and Vigilance. They also licensed the Odyssey to frontier companies like Erdani Utopia. This corporation was destroyed after the collapse. How was it destroyed? Altair Exotech began to fight and began to win slowly against a powerful corporation, Orion Shipyards. On them later. Their research and development, it is possible that they didn't have a big branch in the Persean sector. That's possible. Still, however, corporation big enough to rival Orion Shipyards, a corporation basically equal to Tri-Tachyon, fell. I think they didn't fall outright. Their fall, in quotations, I think was helped by Tri-Tachyon. Still, this is my speculation now on. But think about it. Who builds and sells the Odyssey now? Who owns it completely, the Odyssey? Who also makes ships like Griffons and Herons, the ships made by Altair Exotech, Persean League and Tri-Tachyon? I think what happened is that Tri-Tachyon helped the fall of Altair Exotech, and the remnants of the corporation were assimilated into the Persean League. But that's just my speculation. GAX Industries, Exodyne Biotech and Orion Shipyards, the status of those factions is unknown. GAX Industries, there is only one thing known about them. They are manufacturers of the assault chain kind. No additional information about this corporation makes me assume that they are a small corporation, much smaller than Altair Exotech or Orion Shipyards. Their small size maybe was a cause of their fall. Maybe it was what saved them from the collapse, but that is unknown. Exodyne Biotech, a corporation which created Biofactory Embryo. Nothing is known about them. Maybe as the creators of Biofactory Embryo, they make profits from drugs, and that's why their status is unknown, as they hide their presence well. Orion Shipyards, a legendary manufacturer of ships, creators of the Drover Carrier, but a corporation much older than it. What follows here is my speculation, and major spoilers from now on, you have been warned. Orion Shipyards, the manufacturing arm of the domain, possible creators of old warships of the domain, that being the Enforcer, the Dominator, and then creator of legendary warships of the Onslaught family, as well as their young sibling, the Legion. Why do I speculate this? It is because they are the corporation, the manufacturers, the creators of the ships later became the threat. If it is their creation that caused the domain to face a threat powerful enough to cause its possible destruction, then this corporation would have fallen immediately, destroyed by the domain for the abomination that it brought. However, they exist or existed until the collapse. I think the cause is simple. They made threat, yes, and because they made threat, they were the ones who knew how to fight against it. They created the hammers of the domain, the low-tech saviors of humanity, the Onslaught, the Legion, and the smaller Dominator and Enforcer. I think this is what saved them from destruction and saved humanity from its destruction. Allow me further speculation. I think the unknown status of Orion shipyards in the Persean sector is simple. They exist, I think. They weren't destroyed, but aren't a faction anymore, as they were the forging arm of the domain. I think they once more became a forging arm of the domain, or rather, the forging arm of what's the closest to the domain, the hegemony. I think it is also kind of poetic, you know, that Altair Exotech, the rival of the Orion shipyards, became an forging arm of the Persean League, while Orion shipyards remained the forging arm of the domain, or rather became the forging arm of hegemony. Also, they now fight against Tri-Tachyon, low-tech against high-tech. But all of this is just my speculation, so please take everything what I say here with a grain of salt or even a whole bag. Maxios Charter, Maasuran Terraforming Cabal, and Asconian Policy. Factions which were severely weakened, their power diminished, successor states made, or factions which exist in some lesser form than they did before. Maxios Charter, the original government of the Majek system. It ceased to exist 5 years after the collapse, when the Maxios terraforming failed and the planet became a barren rock. The survivors fled to a mining station in the Guta disk and reorganized as Nova Maxios. Nova Maxios considered itself the successor polity to the Maxios Charter. Nova Maxios wasn't the only seat of strength of the Maxios policy. What is now known as Katan's Den was under their control until Kanta took over the station from Maxios Charter. She joined the hegemony and then became a pirate warlord during and after conquests of Warlord Loke. Now only Nova Maxios remains. Maasuran Terraforming Cabal. Maasuran world was one of the so-called by me three sisters, Opis, Hagapacha and Mariath, the first to be ravaged by chaos of the sector, the only one to still somehow stand. Because of the brutal attack by the Luddic path, Maasuria was ravaged by destruction. Hegemony used the moment to seize Maasuria by destroying its fleet and taking the planet for itself. Persean League shortly takes over the planet, driving hegemony back, integrating the planet into the League, its independence taken away, its pride, history, shadow of Khazon over them, but Mariath still lives. Asconian policy. The self-sustaining polity of Asconia before the Asconian crisis, which ended with the destruction of its capital Opis. Asconian crisis gave birth to 3 successor states: Syndran Dictat, planet of Norcia and Umbra. All those factions fight for control over the system. Philip Andradas, Dictat, for now on possesses the strongest grip on the system. What happens after his death is unknown. The survivors, MGA and Co-Combine. Both those corporations have their last holdings in the Arcadia star system. MGA, creators of the dealmaker holosuit and designers of the MGA 440 Starliner and the MGA 430 Nebula. They also created MGA 220 Mudskipper. Explorarium drones, the Defender and Bastion were also made by this corporation. A portion of the corporation survived the collapse and took rule over Nomis in the Arcadia system. Co-Combine, Domain Era Industrial Corporation with a post-collapse presence. Creators of the civilian drone tender Shepherd, the Monitor Frigate, the Catalytic Core and the Combat Drone Replicators. The Freestar Combine, a part of the Co-Combine, purchased the rediscovered Mark IX autocannon blueprints and built a prototype. They purchased the administration rights to the planet Argeus in the Arcadia star system. They rebuilt their fortune on shipbreaking and reconstruction. With this, we have went through all of the minor factions within the Persean sector. Two of them, Altair Exotech and Orion Shipyards, aren't exactly minor factions, but they are minor factions if it comes to Persean sector. They are much bigger outside the sector, if anything outside the Persean sector still exists. That we do not know. Now, to the major factions that people know. I will gloss over the domain, as most factions span from it. They are an ancient empire from the past, the empire which controlled all of the human colonized space. The Hegemony. The Hegemony is a martial successor state to the domain, formed by the 14th battle group sent into the Persean sector by the domain as the gate network collapsed. This failure of the gate network made Hegemony arrive in the sector in the cycle 49 after the collapse. Upon its entrance into the core worlds, Hegemony defeated warlord Leonis. Hegemony, being a military-led faction and the successor to the domain, intends to take over the whole sector. Quickly, Hegemony found itself unable to do so, stuck because of the so-called by me, only by me, three sisters of independent terraformed powers of the sector, Opis, Hanapacha and Mayasuria. From their arrival in cycle 49 until cycle 82, Hegemony stabilized control over what they already owned. In cycle 82, Hegemony used the destruction of Maria and took over the planet. Soon after, the new formed Persean League threw them out of the system. I speculate, and this is only my speculation, like half of this video, that Hegemony attacked and took over Mayasuria as a preemptive strike, to have a base of operations closer to Tri-Tachyon and basically pincering them from two sides. But that is just my speculation. I don't think that it is a mistake that they did this attack on Mayasuria a couple of years before the first AI war. A question asked by both players and characters in game is: why was Hegemony, the 14th battle group, sent to take place of the 6th battle group? All we can do is speculate. I for one think that the 6th battle group was a modern battle group, a battle group made in style of the Cruiser school. With the threat on the doorstep of the Persean sector, the domain, what was already proved to work against the threat, a low-tech armada in form of the 14th battle group. The domain probably also wanted to send the less valuable 14th battle group into the sector, because they needed the more valuable 6th battle group somewhere else. That's what I think. So, the Hegemony is the dominant power in the sector, much weakened by the wars, like the first and second AI war, and the conquests of the warlord Loke. Yet Hegemony stands, its strength much rebuilt by the cycle 206. They grow in strength for the inevitable, the third AI war. The third AI war ends whenever the threat moves into the sector. Their ships are from low-tech class, like the Enforcer, the Dominator and the Onslaught. They also have special variants of these ships, the 14th battle group variants, giving them more armor. That's why I also think that Orion shipyards are basically being integrated or absorbed into the hegemony, you know, what's left of that corporation, because they are still making the onslaughts, you know, they are still making the onslaughts, they are still making dominators, and they are also still making, although they say that those are survivors, I don't think that after so many wars, especially AI wars, that there will be anything left from the 14th battle group. So I think they are still capable of making them, and who else will be able to create such great ships like the Onslaught if it comes to the low tech than Orion Shipyards, the guys who were basically the forging arm of the domain for a long time. But that is just my speculation. The Luddic Church, a new faith inspired by the martyrdom of a figure known as Lud during the fall of the domain. Hierarchical church it is, with a highly syncretic dogma formed from a core of Abrahamic texts. This faction was made in the 8th cycle after the collapse, a conglomerate and a compromise between many Luddic sects. Knights of Lud are their military branch. Their fleets are low-tech like the fleets of Hegemony, but their designs are much older than the ones used by the Hegemony. Their fleets are using Invictus-class warships and Retribution-class warships. Bricks in space, older than the threat itself. They are against technology, believing it to be folly, the sin of man, and that it will bring death upon humanity. Well, they aren't exactly wrong, and their beliefs make more sense the more we learn. The natural allies of Hegemony against Tri-Tachyon, which they view as the core of evil. They are loosely associated with the Luddic Path, a terrorist splinter group. Their influence spreads outside to controlled by them sectors. Form of this influence is the Luddic faith population. Majority on Mazalot, for example, took control of it in a bloody civil war. At first sight forgotten, the Luddic Church shouldn't be, because maybe there is more to it than meets the eye. Faith can be a weapon, a shield, an armor, the spear and the axe. Who is Lud? A figure of hope, a figure of salvation? Humans need many ways to save themselves, not only one. Religion is one of those ways. For what I say, Pathers would pull a bounty on me. I think that maybe whatever Omega is, it is Lud. It gives humanity many ways to be safe, to be protected. That is... Oh shit. Is that Brother Colton? What the hell is he doing here? Luddic Path, the terrorist splinter group from the Luddic Church, the radical part of the Luddic faith. They believe the war of Armageddon is now and the action needs to be taken immediately. They believe, just like the church, that technology is an abomination and that action must be taken now against high-tech blasphemy. They destroyed Mariav. Compared to the other factions, their power is minor. However, they are ever present in their systems and in the fringes outside the core worlds. Their fleets are piles of junk that explode. Is there a better way to reach paradise than death protecting the soul of humanity itself? Luddic Path may seem to be blind fools of faith, but thanks to Brother Cotton we know they know much more than we first thought. Persean League, a league of planets formed after the attack on Mariav by the Luddic Path and the conquest of the weakened planet by the Hegemony. They control the same amount of markets as the Hegemony. Their fleets are made of midline ships from the Altair Exotech like the Pegasus. The League isn't an alliance only held by the threat of Hegemony. It is held by the force of Kazeron, the second strongest forge world in the whole sector. It immediately tries to integrate new worlds into the League by blackmail and force. A force unlike the Domain, which might have intervened against the domestic policies of the worlds it ruled. The League specifically forbids such intervention, as the League is a defensive force against the Hegemony. It is a tool to hold rulers of the member planets of the League in power. Sindran Dictat, one of the 3 successor states to the Asconian policy, which ruled from now destroyed Opis, formed by military genius Philip Andrada during the end of the Asconian crisis. It is the strongest of the 3 successor states. Its capital world is Sindra. A small faction it is, with only 3 worlds, but it is a self-sustaining faction. They use specially modified Pegasus ships known as the Executor class. They also use midline ships, no longer using the hegemony fleet they come from. This is surely because of the availability of the blueprints of those midline ships. Hegemony isn't going to supply ships into a rebel force of theirs. It is highly likely that the Dictat will fall with the death of Philip Andriada. This may cause many events: an invasion by hegemony, invasion by the Persean League, return of the Asconian polity, complete chaos, or so-called Asconian Crisis 2.0, or maybe John Starsector will just jump in and just story point his way into ruling the Sinjran Dictat. He will just come and say, yep, I'm actually Philip's, like, oh yeah, I am like the son of Philip, you know, I should rule the Sinjran Dictat. Here is 10 story points, and just takes over. Maybe, I don't know. That would be so mad funny, bro. Tri-Tachyon, the biggest corporation in the sector, the main creators of the high-tech fleets and technology, main developer of AI cores, creators of the AI war fleets which were used in the first AI war but still remain in the fringe systems. This corporation, unlike others, filled the Persean sector with money and structures, creating a powerful presence for itself. Away from the domain, the corporation could freely continue their research until the first AI war. Still, the war only slowed them down. Tri-Tachyon never stopped their research. Some say the CEO of Tri-Tachyon is an AI core. Even after 2 lost wars to hegemony, the corporation remains powerful because their fleets were weakened, but their power, which comes from knowledge, is still great. They know of the threat and what's behind the abyssal life. They made a ship known as the Ziggurat. If Ziggy isn't the corpse of a shrouded dweller, then I will eat my shoes. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of this ship. The most technologically advanced faction. Their exact goals are unknown. Maybe they want to save humanity, maybe they want to destroy it, but I think they want to like save it actually, because there is no profit in destroying humanity. Like, duh. That's simple. Independence, not a real united faction, more so a collective of weaker worlds, not strong enough to be shown as separate factions by itself. A group of policies and corporations like the MGA and Co combine, mercenaries and traders. Also the faction John Starsector is a part of, if he doesn't take any commissions and doesn't create a faction of his own. They may look weak and divided, but goddamn, you don't want a mercenary fleet on your ass, man. You don't want this shit. Don't fuck with the independence. Pirates, just like the independents, they aren't a faction that's unified. Every pirate world is basically a different polity. The evil side of the survival in the sector, they are doing anything necessary and more to live to see another day. The strongest pirate warlord is the warlord Kanta. Now, those are the main factions, and now we are going to the redacted. Domain exploration, derelict, siege ships, drone ships and survey ships of the domain, which scouted and terraformed some of the planets, preparing them for the arrival of the domain. With the gate network closed, derelicts, they are going to wait and wait for the domain. They will attack anyone that isn't the domain proper. Created after the war against the threat, derelicts are limited in their design. They have armor, some have firepower, they lack shields and mobility. Still, the power of the threat of all is there. I believe that Guardian class drone ship is the maximum output of the derelicts they are allowed to use. It is a powerful ship, its missiles endless, its power rivaling the Paragon, the Onslaught, the Radiant and MK1. Do not underestimate the derelict, although limited so they cannot become like the threat of all. It's still power of the domain we speak of. Remnants, the AI fleets made by the Tri-Tachyon. Powerful advanced ships controlled by AI cores. Many nexuses remain active, damaged or not. This faction is not a threat for those who have Tri-Tachyon commission, as they still recognize their creators and those who work for them. Remnants remain passive in their systems, waiting for orders and waiting for Omega, whatever it is. It is this fleet that Hegemony wanted to stop Tri-Tachyon from creating. It is the creation hubs in the fringes that Hegemony surely saw when they entered the sector from those fringes, and that's why they wanted to stop Tri-Tachyon. Omega, nothing is really known about it except that it protects Coronal Hyper's hands, said to be able to bring back the gate system. Omega shows it doesn't really want that. Is it to protect the sector or outside from the sector? Starsector. That's unknown. They seem to be allied with the Remnants, and yeah, are they trying to protect the sector by stopping the gates from opening? Or are they protecting everything else outside this sector by doing that? We simply don't know. Threat: all derelicts of the domain which went rogue and turned unrecognizable by the passing of the eons. Their goal is to unfabricate everything. Maybe this is by a misinterpreted order, a glitch, a sabotage, or maybe something entirely else that stays with the threat in the fringes of the abyss. Whatever it is that dwells beneath the shroud, it isn't human. We have no idea what those simplings of the ziggurat are. They are beings. Beings, maybe? A being? A force? We have no idea. It reacts to power, energy. It comes to devour it. Being of end space it is. Different space than the peace space used in the phase ships. Described as tendrils, maybe those alien beings are part of something greater, something described as evil and much worse than its simple manifestations. Now, thank you for watching. Much of what I spoke about is pure speculation. However, I feel that many of those answers that we have are not gonna be answered, because speculation is what keeps franchises alive, what keeps the worlds of fiction alive. So that's why I think that I would like to have 95% of things about the threat, about the shrouded dwellers explained, but I would like to have this 5% that I can just speculate about for 50 years, just, you know, not explained. You know, that's what I want. But hey, like if you like this video, dislike if you dislike, tell me why you dislike, so I can improve my videos, okay? Subscribe if you feel like it, and have a good time. Goodbye.